Today I thought I might deal with how much I see people struggling with the crane and the gap that inevitably shows up at the top, no matter how snug you try and make it at the bottom here. Oh, by the way, if the crane isn't going as high as you want, then try walking around the top of the cliff, as being higher than the crane itself allows you to raise it much higher, even up to about 8 levels or so. So anyways, I see a fair number of people struggling to make the gap work, either with just like custom stairs and the like, or sometimes building nice and snugly around the crane, just put some rock walls or custom foundation, what have you, just surround it, and then you can walk up here and get right off, and it's nice. Anyways, when I was doing my last video with the drawbridges there, I realized that the basic principles of just being able to walk on the birdhouses that you place on the crane would work pretty well here too, with being able to bridge the gap at the tops here. And you can bring sleds up with you too, as shown in the video before that, having a crane sidecar for sleds. And of course it's so simple to do, just placing birdhouses right on there, which is real nice to bridge the gap at the top here. The sidecar is a bit more complicated, but I'll get into that in a moment. So basically you're just going to want to line up the crane lift section with one of these horizontal poles here. I could go for this one, but it's a little bit cramped right here, so I think I might just go, and you can't go on the top one either because you need to have the lift section just a bit above the poles, otherwise it's really hard to place. So you need to go, I'd say, to one of these side ones, not for this crane. We go for the lower one here, and then try and get it just so that you barely can't walk onto it. That should be just about the right height to make it easiest to place the birdhouses. Now, depending on the height of the crane, it changes how these horizontal support bars are placed, and in this case it's a bit too tall for me to reach, so I'm just going to build up a temporary little thing so that I can actually reach to place the blueprints down. Or you could do a permanent one if you wanted to have some kind of place where the crane goes down into. So yeah, it takes a while to get a feel for, but you can eventually kind of go like that and think, oh, looks like that's about even with the crane section right there, so it should be able to move just fine. And you only really need the one birdhouse, but I kind of like having the other side as well, otherwise it's kind of asymmetrical because they all have to start off the one birdhouse. So yeah, once you're comfortable with how the birdhouses look, it seems like they're going to be lined up pretty well. Probably go ahead and just try building them, see if it looks all good. Yeah, got a nice smooth walk transition over. Now I know that I can move the crane section here. Well, I can, as you can see, I can still move it in blueprint form too. I just wanted to check if this was all good here. Now I can raise this up to the top where I want it, and then I can just go crazy and build birdhouses out from there. And one of the best parts, in my opinion, is that this will all disappear into the cliff as it goes down, because the birdhouses don't have collision when they're placed on the crane here. I personally would recommend laying some kind of temporary scaffolding or something so that you can have something to stand on, because these cliffs can be really slippery. Whee! So now that takes care of the top. And it slides smoothly into the cliff. Out of sight, out of mind. I can get rid of these temporary places to stand. And we are in business. Now, if we feel like having a sidecar for the sleds to come up, that's going to be a bit more difficult, but we can work through. Now, if you placed your birdhouses from up top, just below the crane lift section and just the right height here, then you should be able to put it right down to the ground and have the birdhouses sink into the ground a little bit, and that should enable you both walk on them and bring sleds on them. Which means that we can just build right off of those birdhouses on whichever side we want. I think I'd kind of like maybe this side for a nice place to have sleds come right onto the crane sidecar. If you didn't manage to nail the height leveling so that you can just walk right on these birdhouses from the ground or bring sleds on them, you can just slowly over time, as you can sort of see on this one right here, just slowly bring the birdhouses down as far as you can when you're placing them each time. So right about there is equal, so I'll go down a little bit, and right about here. Also, the character moves as the character breathes, so literally where you're placing things changes from second to second, just in microscopic amounts, as you can see, just a little bit of movement. But over time you can bring the birdhouses down further into the ground, so if you need that extra height difference. And obviously for both the top first birdhouses up there and for the sidecar, you don't have to go the whole length of the elevator like I'm doing, or you could go even further. It's all up to you on the sizing of your birdhouse extensions here. Or as a last resort, if your sled won't fit on the birdhouses here, you could also just put up some quick stairs. Just do it like this, and then you can just bring it right up and over. If I actually did it properly. Be right on there and you're good. Or like I was saying earlier, if you wanted a permanent attachment, sort of like I see a lot of people doing like I'll throw a platform over on this side of the crane right here. So if you wanted something like that, then the birdhouses would just sink right through with no collision, and then you just have a normal stairway right up to whatever kind of platform you've chosen from there. But any way you want it, you just get it so that you can have your sleds on your sidecar here, and then you can bring them up, and then you're going, oh wait a minute, I still need to get around to the initial birdhouses that I placed down. So you're going to want to build a bit more of a corner piece right here so that you can actually drive properly over. And there we go. The nice thing about the sleds is that you can leave even bigger gaps between the birdhouses than if you're going to try walking over them, but I didn't do that here because I like being able to walk over anyways. But if you feel like it, you can just almost, say if I took out the middle one I'm standing on, or it looks like I'm on right here, I would still be able to have it resting on this one and this one, so I would only need half of the poles in this one section, for example, and the sled can just kind of skid along hanging in midair. It's kind of weird. You also don't have to have the sidecar and the first like top birdhouse area thing that actually connects the top of the cliff. You don't have to have that all on the same level. Like if you're doing this inside a base, for example, you might want to have the sled cart thing going to a level below you and have it placed on one of these other pillars when the top one is placed up here. There's lots of customization options, but it's usually you're just going to want it all on one, you son of a gun, all on one level here. So now, when I was messing around with all this, mostly during the drawbridges video, I realized that the birdhouses can interact with rafts, and in this case I'm wanting to use it to lift them out of the water. Because I'm thinking I want to do some kind of docking port for these large rafts that I usually use as my transport of goods anyway, so I'm thinking I want this way to get over some kind of large obstacles in my way, like cliffs on the land, or maybe even right off the ocean. So, since the elevator can only go about 8 floors in height, I've got to find a place where A, it's not too tall for the elevator. I'll tell you how to find that. You might have your own methods, but and B, I can still get fairly snug to the cliff bottom so that I don't have to build out so far that would be so resource intensive that nobody would bother trying, and I'd be making this part of the video for nothing. One of the spots I decided on is right here on the southern cliffs, since there's a nice shallow spot right here where I can place a crane at pretty much water height so that I can get a feel for the total height, since the central lift section of the crane can't go any further than the water, but the birdhouses can, so I'll be having the birdhouses under and just the crane section here. And then I can just go to the top of the cliff. Yeah, it's a pretty long walk, but whatever. And then I can see how far I can push this crane in height. Seems like right about there, which is more than this cliff even is, which is kind of nice. So I've some room to work with, but right about now I'm going to get just approximately where I want it. Sort of like here or so, I'd say. And yeah, now I've decided where I want the height of the crane. I can take a rock blueprint or whatever and just place it temporarily and see if that lines up approximately with where the floor should go. Looks like this is a bit lower than the crane, but that doesn't matter too much. Just approximating right now. Now I know that when I build out, I can use the idea of cutting the floor out from under the elevator to get more movement range. First showcased that I saw on Merchrono's channel. He's a German forest YouTuber, builds some amazing shit. You should check him out. And how I plan to get out into the open air so that I can build this elevator is by using my custom floating rope technique, although you can use whatever your preferred method is of getting a nice floor floating out there in the air. So basically, since I know that I'm going to be building the rock walls to hold the floor on top of some custom platforms, the cliff hugging variant here comes out when you hug the cliff here. I've already laid this one down, and I know that's approximately where I feel like the height. I actually laid these two down before I laid this demonstrating elevator, so I'm probably just going to build at these two height as opposed to that one. But now I can build more of these platforms out from here, however I feel like, either rough or really take my time like this. Oh, come on, jump. If you're having troubles guessing where you're going to be putting your floor, you can always even just use a custom foundation for a sec. Just be like, alright, so that's where the floor could be there, and then that would be level with that, or what the level would be with the elevator over there, and then you build up your rock walls. Then you can place your floor on top. Now, in order to know how far out I have to go, I would recommend building a raft beforehand, because then you can just grab a custom foundation and just lay the first point somewhere up here on the one of the corners of what's going to be this whole platform here. Bring it out over here so that it's still going down. Then you can get approximately where you want there we go, the whole platform to look like when you're done. Using the, I guess, snap mechanics of the 90-degree snap that the custom foundation has. And then you can do, right there. And do it just so you have, you know, a little bit of room around to work with. Yeah, it should be pretty good. And now I know that this whole thing is square. And then I'll just walk around, or since I've got the command console on, I'll just teleport. And then I can see that my raft will be nice and snug inside of this eventual floor here. Now we know that we're going to put the total floor on the outside, like the rocks are going to be out on the edge here, so that the floor is going to be bigger than that, but this foundation here represents what's actually going to be cut out of the floor, so that the raft can rise up through it on top of the birdhouse crane. So now that you have your raft approximately where you want it when it'll be lifted, I want to go down here and bring out some blueprint and start building a some kind of floor underneath of your raft here to stand on and to operate on. Do it at this stage, trust me. On this practice setup I did, I tried to force in these walls afterwards, and it didn't work that well. It doesn't look that good. It was just super annoying all around. So I definitely recommend getting a flooring of some kind onto your raft instead, and then build up walls from that. Or you could just decide to have your crane over here on the edge of the platform and then have all the birdhouses hang off and just have the crane come up that way. Unfortunately, then you're going to need more birdhouses so you have somewhere to stand on the outside of it so you can push the raft off when you bring it up to height. However, this will pretty much the only way that you can get the pimped out rafts. I'm going to have stuff on them onto these lifts. I'll be messing around with those rafts in a few minutes here. Now, when you're choosing the exact height for this bottom floor, the only thing you got to remember is that you just need to be able to run the raft over it. You don't need extra room for the birdhouses because those don't have collisions, so they can just go right through whatever floor you have here. And if you're doing the larger side jutting out version, you're going to want a larger floor down here at the water level too, just somewhere to stand on while you work on the larger custom rafts. But I want to do one last quick thing before I get onto those. Basically, for a long time now, I've been thinking of using my sled causeways here as same thing coming out of the water or going up a rock face or something like that. Over here on my main base, I've got one just over here coming out just for foot traffic. You can just walk down, go in, and just walk right out. Or I think it might just barely fit a small raft. But to be honest, I guess not really sure why you wouldn't just use like custom stairs or something like I've done before. When I needed to bring my main raft up here, I just put some stairs up and pushed it up and knocked a few of these trees down because I was trying to keep all the trees around my main base up. It's just that the rock causeway thing, boat ramp, would look nicer than the wooden stairs do. So now I want to get them birdhouse pimpin' additions going, but first, so I've put the other spar kind of thing sticking out over here, so now I can put rock walls on top and then build a floor from there. And before I build the floor, I think I'm going to want to build those couple more extensions here so that I have somewhere to place the crane. The demonstrating one, the last one I built, was just over here with just one, and then a little gap in the middle, two, lead out, and then since there's the gap, the crane section can go right down, and the birdhouse can go with it, and there's the hole in the middle, which will enable rafts to rise right through. But I think for this one I'm going to go out on the outer edge this way and head out because I'm going to be doing the crazy rafts. But yeah, briefly back to the flooring here. If you are doing the larger side jutting version, then you don't really have to go out this far with the platforms like this. You really only need enough space to fit a crane just far enough out from the cliff that you can let it go right down to the water. However, if you want the raft to come through the big floor, you're going to want to make it 2 or more pieces, unlike this one piece floor, because I went with one piece in the trial effort here, and as you can see, I barely made it big enough for the raft to still get through before I ran out of the limit on the hole cuts you can do on a single floor there, and it was pretty annoying to get it mostly even as it is. It's still kind of wonky because at this height the hole cutter tends to bug out and just go right downwards towards the ground, which is at this point all the way down in the water. Okay, so now that I have just a nice basic little floor here on some little rock walls on the bottom, got some rock walls up top here to help guide my rafts into when I want to put them right in line with the birdhouse crane. I got the birdhouse crane set up itself done. I can finally get to these crazy rafts. So way back when I was thinking that I wanted to put birdhouses on these large rafts in the back here as somewhere to stand on so that I could push them at the same time so that you could kind of one-man this supposedly two-man raft. I just realized that it was fairly easy to do and it looked kind of nice even if I didn't get the push thing to work quite well. Yeah, I think I'd like to revisit this whole idea, starting with the push cage, see if I can't make it work this time. So, after about an hour or so of experimenting, I realized that the birdhouses don't actually rely on the previous birdhouses that they're placed on for like staying built, so I can take out any of these first ones here, and these other ones out further will stay floating and still be attached to the raft when I move it around, so I don't have to worry about that kind of thing. So in combination with that, I decided to yeah, just start off as low as I could here on the initial platform, and then just keep working my way a little bit lower each time, very minuscule amounts, and then work my way out to probably, yeah, right around here, like 10 or so birdhouses, maybe 15. I worked my way back in, and then I was at a good low height to be able to be centered and still low to this push icon so that I can still get it most of the time. And then I basically just destroyed the rest of what was floating off there so it didn't look too silly. And then I started on this bottom birdhouse and then built the second one and just kept building upwards from there. Because one of the other neat things about the birdhouses is that you can build on top of them fairly easily, stacking them. Just take your birdhouse blueprint and do this and hover over, and right around where the connections are, like the points between two birdhouses, is right where you can build your next birdhouse. And so basically, once I had a nice blank wall to work from, I just pushed a few birdhouses facing this way inwards as a nice little sort of cage to surround me so that I can't get out too much when I'm trying to push here. Well, I can get out just at the very end here if I'm really trying. And I just use the normal oars to direct myself where I want to go, and then I slip in here and I'm off to the races. Works pretty well when I'm in the shallows like this, but once I'm out over in the open ocean, something about the push function that makes it want to go into the water, so it's a bit slower, but still I'd say I'm at least equal to the two-man speed of operating the raft, if not possibly a little bit faster. The only thing is I've got to hop out and manually adjust which way I want to go. Hop right back in, and I can bring my assumedly full of logs or sticks or whatever. Just, you know, you would have this whole place pretty filled up with stuff and make this an actual useful venture as a way to one-man this supposedly two-man raft. And now I'm thinking I want to go crazy on these birdboats. Although, I suppose one last thing I should mention is that the birdhouses always attach at right angles to each other, so you can either put it right off the front again or just off the sides. So if you're wanting to get different angles and you want to do something like, say, a water collector or something that you can just easily turn, and that'll keep adjusting the angle at which the birdhouses are then going to be placed. Alright, so starting with the small raft, I went ahead and did the one side. I'm wanting to do like a little skiff sort of thing looking here, a little small attack craft. So I've got just the one water collector to start, and then I did the forwards one, and to the side curved around here and made that the outer edge placement areas. I don't know where I'm placing the birdhouses, and then the other water collectors were to adjust the angles for the side ones, and then I stacked the outer edge up so that I've got a railing so I can't fall off, and now I'll complete the other side here. And like I was saying, having this floor here to stand on makes it really nice to be able to place these birdhouse additions to the rafts. Oops. Yeah, sometimes when you're standing a bit too close that happens. You just have to do this, break it up, push it back, and stand a bit further away from the raft when you're doing it. Obviously, if I wasn't in creative mode, it wouldn't have completed so fast. Almost done. got our nice little attack skiff kind of thing going on here. I left this end open so I can have somewhere to jump up, but you could fill that in if you made some kind of way to get up for yourself. This can obviously support way more people than the normal small raft, which is usually its main weakness, that you don't have room for stuff. So, for example, you could build a bunch of log holders or whatnot, and then still have room for all your friends on the outsides here, standing on the ramparts, or whatever you would call that, the ship version of that. Now for the boathouse, honestly it's just got such a vague shape to begin with. I don't even know about trying to shape it into like a nice looking aerodynamic or hydrodynamic shape, so I'll just tell you that it seems like you can place them along the bottom here, anywhere you want along the bottom, and up along the top. That's the main spots you can do it on this boat. And also you can obviously change the angle with the birdhouses, or water collectors, so you can turn the angle and place the birdhouses upon them at different angles if you want, and just let you guys do what you want in your own imagination there. I think even though it won't have a general shape, unless you work really hard, I think it'll feel the most cozy out of the boats. I'm probably going to have the most fun with it myself, and just random play by myself, really. And finally, with the large raft, I wanted to make this kind of a second level up here, based on just the top level itself. A couple of them were based off of that, these as far as going this way, and then a lot of them were just based off of some water collectors, so that I can aim which way I want them. And yeah, basically just hoping to go for like a frigate warship type look here. Unfortunately I couldn't finish up and do any more than this really, because even as it is right now, my computer's starting to get kind of laggy with all these birdhouses and that big ass lift. I don't know if I destroy the lift I can get more on the frigate after, but I don't know, do that some other time. I just want to finish up for today really. But yeah, it was just based off of those literal just two starting points, is the collectors and the top of the ship here. And then when I was placing these down, I was originally going to have another line running all along the sides, so that you have a nice just top sides of your hull really, and then place these curved water collectors at the front here, so that I could get a nice pointed end at the front, so that it would look like a real ship. But I'll have to do that some other time. But doing that did make me realize that you can get up really easily out of the water with these water collectors. You just jump right up on them. Right now I'm on the side you're supposed to jump up on, but even if you go to the supposedly hard side, you can just swim up to the water collector and just jump on real easy, which is a nice little trick. And then I can use that on the small raft too, because I kind of closed up all my space there with that skiff shape. Of course, I didn't even have to do this exact big-ass frigate shape looking thing with the second level and everything. I could have just done whatever raft additions I feel like, and so can you too. But yeah, it's just based on how much your computer can handle, really. And also with the using the lift is always fairly intensive, so I made the lift pretty huge, and then adding this rather large raft up on top is really making it go a bit crazy. So I think I would probably scale it down. I didn't even need to make this so thick right here so that I can push it. I could have done it a lot more strategically, like I did in this one over here, which I know I usually only push it one direction straight off the raft. I didn't really need to do all this, but I thought that my computer was stronger than it was, or that this doesn't take up as much effort as it does. Sometimes when you get off the lift, it'll freeze in midair on you, so you gotta watch out for that. Maybe right about here, and then just fall off and try and push it to resettle it, and now it'll actually activate when I lift the raft again. Climbing axe time. But once I do make it up, then it does flow like butter, because there's no gaps at all in the birdhouses here for it to get caught on. Except for this big gap where I can't stand. But I've got this right here, so it's no problemo. Well, that's pretty much all I wanted to show you today. I hope you all have an excellent day, and good luck in your building endeavors.